You ever have certain people you root for, even if they're not on your team? I root for Mel Tucker. Hey, good morning. It's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right. It's me, Uncle Lou, and I'm live for you on LouTube today. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate it also. And in addition to that as well, subscribe to this channel if you're not already. I post college football videos almost every single day of the year. And a lot of times, believe it or not, they're even watchable. And up today, I'm going to do a preview and a game-by-game prediction for the Michigan State Spartans. Now, this preview comes as a suggestion from Trevor E. over on the Uncle Lou Patreon page. Trevor, I really appreciate you supporting the channel over on the Patreon page, buddy. It really means a lot to me, all of you who have chosen to support me over on the Patreon page. So, Trevor, thank you again, and I hope you enjoy today's video. All right, here we go, Michigan State. Now, how many of these have I done now? A bunch of them. I can't remember. I'm going to put a playlist up here if I can remember that'll take you to the playlist. It's got all the teams in it that I've done so far. Do me a favor. Pick your team out of that list or your favorite preview of mine that I've done so far and share it somewhere. I'm trying to grow the channel in the off season and it's not easy to do. I put a lot of time and effort into these videos. So if you guys could help me out by sharing these somewhere, that would really help me out. All right, here we go. Michigan State 2020. Now, we have to start with last year, Mark D'Antonio's last year at Michigan State, and it did not go well, and that marked 2 seasons in a row where they were really disappointing. Most of the problems for Michigan State fell on the offensive side of the ball. Their defense was pretty good the last couple of years, but their offense, despite some different things that Mark D'Antonio tried, was just never really able to get going over the last couple of years, and Michigan State has gone in a different direction in 2020. Now, I guess technically D'Antonio quit or resigned or retired at the end of the year. There was some lawsuits going on with some recruiting issues involving a recruiting coordinator, and it was just kind of a big mess was going on there. And on top of that, the team wasn't very good, and that always makes it easier for a head coach to make that decision. And so he decided to step away. And of course, Michigan State brings in Mel Tucker. Now, I love Mel Tucker. I've been a Mel Tucker fan for several years now, but I'm a little surprised he got this job this soon. He was only at Colorado for 1 year. Of course, prior to that, he was defensive coordinator at Georgia. Prior to that, he was a DB coach at Alabama. He spent some time in the NFL, and then going all the way back, he actually had his start in college football at Michigan State as a grad assistant way back in, I think, 1997, a grad assistant under then head coach Nick Saban. According to Mel Tucker, he was making $400 a week and sleeping under a desk in the athletic office back in 1997. But he put in the time, effort, and energy. He worked his way up. Like, I spent some time in the NFL, worked back under Saban again at Alabama, got a shot as a DC at Georgia where he did really well for, was it 3 years? Got his first shot as a head coach at Colorado, and he was only there 1 year, and now at Michigan State. And it didn't go well at Colorado, which is one of the reasons I'm sort of surprised he got this opportunity so soon. He was 5-7 at Colorado last year. Michigan State plucks him away. They're paying him double what he was making at Colorado. Believe it or not, Mel Tucker is now the 12th highest paid head coach in the Power 5. That's unbelievable. As much as I love Mel Tucker, I'm not sure this hire made a whole lot of sense, and the money, to me, definitely didn't make a whole lot of sense. Let's look at how Michigan State has done over the last few years. Seems like forever ago, and some of you may not even remember, Michigan State actually made a college football playoff. That's right, and the playoffs haven't been around that long, since, what, 2014, I believe, right? They made the playoffs, was it 2015? Yeah, 2015. They lost 38-0. In the first round of the playoffs to, I believe, Alabama that year. Is that right? I think it was Alabama. Anyway, they lost 38-0. The next year, they went 3-9, and they never really recovered. Now, in 2017, they had a little bit of a rebound, winning 10 games. But then D'Antonio's last 2 years, like I mentioned before, 18 and 19, struggled to get to 500, going 7-6 both years. 7-6 last year. Did beat Wake Forest in a bowl game, Pinstripe Bowl, I believe it was. But they had a 5-game losing streak in the middle of the season, Michigan State did, and it just sort of destroyed any hope or momentum that they had for the season. They're going in a new direction. Mel Tucker. I like Mel Tucker. I wish him nothing but the best at Michigan State, but this hire is a little bit head-scratching to me. The lack of experience that Mel Tucker has at head coach, plus the fact that the experience he does have, he didn't do that well, 5-7 at Colorado. Plus, I thought Michigan State would go out and get an offensive guy for head coach. That's been sort of their Achilles heel over the last few years. They've just been absolutely awful on offense. Mel Tucker's a defensive guy. We'll see how it works out. We'll see how it works out for Michigan State. All right, let's take a look at recruiting. This is something I like to do for every team. I look at the last 4 years worth of recruiting. That gives me a pretty good idea of the overall talent that a team is working with. Now, I know there are players on the roster that don't fall into any of these 4 recruiting classes. Maybe they transferred in. Maybe they're 5th or 6th year seniors. You got a whole variety of things that can happen to affect the roster. But generally speaking, if you look at the last 4 recruiting classes, that'll give you a pretty good idea of the talent you're working with. 2020, the class that just ended, you can remember there was a coaching change going on here. Plus, they had 2 really bad seasons leading up to this class, but they were 43rd in the nation, and that put them way down at 10th recruiting within the Big Ten. You go back the year before that, it was a little bit better, 33rd in the nation in 19, good for 7th in the Big Ten. 31st in 2018, that was 6th in the Big Ten, and 36th in 2017, 6th in the Big Ten. So, middle of the road talent-wise within the Big Ten. Right? 6, 6, 7, and 10 are their last 4 recruiting rankings within the Big Ten. So some talent, definitely not Ohio State, Penn State, or Michigan talent. And we've sort of seen those results on the field, right? So is recruiting a 100% accurate indication of how a team is going to do every single year? No, but it's a pretty good indication of how a team is going to do over any 3, 4, 5-year period. At least in my opinion, it is. These rankings that I'm using come from 24/7 Sports. I'm not here to tell you they're the best. I just use 24/7 every single time I talk about recruiting for consistency reasons. That way I don't have to try to remember which recruiting service I quoted last week or last month. I just always use 24/7. If you want to look up the rankings on Rivals or ESPN, you're welcome to do that. These are the rankings according to the 24/7 composite index. All right, let's take a look at Michigan State's offense in 2020. Do they have any reason to be optimistic on the offensive side of the ball? What's coming back? What did they lose? What changes can we expect to see philosophically from Michigan State with a new coaching staff in town heading into 2020? Let's find out. Well, they lose their starting quarterback from last year. This could be addition by subtraction. I was not impressed with the quarterback play at Michigan State last year, and I don't really think anybody was. Like I said, the offense was terrible, and when that's the case, whether it's fair or not, the quarterback is going to get more of the blame than he deserves. If a team is really good, the quarterback tends to get too much credit. If a team is really bad, the quarterback tends to get too much blame. You got a 3-way sort of battle going on for the quarterback situation here. And Michigan State is one of those teams that's really going to be hurt by the lack of an offseason, right? No spring practice, no real offseason conditioning program because of the coronavirus and COVID-19, and players sort of spread out, not able to work together. You got a new coaching staff, new offensive coordinator, 3-way quarterback battle, and a condensed time frame really to try to figure that out. You're talking really about 6 weeks to try to figure this out heading into the season. Who are the 3 guys? Well, you got a junior, Lombardi. Now, he played some last year, played in some mop-up time too. Didn't look all that good when he played. I would be surprised, honestly, if he ends up getting the starting job, even though he's the most experienced of the 3. Just my opinion. You got sophomore Theo Day. This guy's a big athletic guy with a strong arm. I think it's going to come down to him and redshirt freshman Peyton Thorne. A lot of people, before spring practices got canceled way back in March and April, a lot of people were anxious and excited to see Peyton Thorne and how he would look in spring. A lot of people had pegged him as the probable starter heading into 2020. Now, how much will the COVID and the cancellations of practice and all that affect that? I'm not sure. To be honest, though, I would still put my money on him to get the start. When you're a first-year head coach at a school, if you're going to take a chance at the quarterback position in terms of playing a freshman or an unproven guy, I think your first year there is really your best opportunity to do it. Your first year at a school is almost a mulligan. Rarely do people hold anything against you that you do in your first year at a school, right? So now would be the chance to sort of roll the dice on the young but talented kid. I would go with Peyton Thorne, but my money's on him or either Theo Day. We'll see how it works out. Offensive line, some good, some bad. You got 10 offensive linemen returning that have started at least one game in their career. That's the good news. Bad news is a lot of them haven't started much more than that. You had to play a lot of offensive linemen over the last couple of years because you were really decimated injury-wise along the offensive line. So while you lose a lot of your starters along the offensive line from last year's team, you are replacing them with some experienced guys. We'll see how they do. You got 2 spots that I think are, we know who's going to play there. The other 3 are sort of, up for grabs. We'll see what the coaching staff decides to do, but you got a lot of experienced players to choose from along the offensive line. Running back, I like this. Is running back the strongest suit of this offense? Maybe. Elijah Collins, 988 yards last year. Now, a lot of guys go over 1,000 nowadays, so 1,000 yards as sort of a benchmark doesn't really mean as much as it used to, when teams played 10, sometimes 11 games. Now you got teams playing 12, 13, 14, some cases even 15 games a year. But still, 988 yards is pretty good, especially considering how bad Michigan State's offense was last year. Elijah Collins, a sophomore, 988 yards last year, 4.5 per carry. Can he improve on that this year? If so, you're looking like you have yourself a pretty good running back there. Wide receiver, not such good news here. You lose your top 3 pass catchers from last year. So you got a lot of work to do at a wide receiver position. You lose a lot of production when you lose your top 3 guys from a year. Jalen Naylor was injured last year. He may be the most talented wide receiver on your team. He looked good in the 3 or 4 games that he played. He was injured for the rest of the season. Did I write this down? Yeah, 15 catches in 4 games. So not too bad. Build on that. Like I said, he's probably the most talented guy you have. Trey Mosley looked good at times last year as a freshman. You would assume he's going to be better now, year 2 in college. And you have a transfer from Western Michigan. Now, this is sort of the wild card of the wide receiver core at Michigan State, in my opinion. This guy was a freshman All-American in 2018, Jaden Reed, for Western Michigan. So the competition level, obviously, that he saw at Western Michigan pales in comparison to the competition level he's going to see within the Big Ten, particularly the Big Ten East in the Power 5. But a freshman All-American nonetheless. We'll see how he looks now that he's moved up in competition at Michigan State in the Power 5. Look over on the defensive side of the ball. And again, this has been the strong suit for Michigan State over the last few years. Say what you want about how bad Michigan State has been over the last 2 years, and they've been pretty bad. It's hard to find reasons on the defense to blame for their struggles. Their defense has actually been pretty good. In fact, if you look at the last 3 years, they were 18th, 7th, and 10th in total yards. So the defense has been good enough to win more than 6 or 7 games, which is what you've done the last 2 years. Problems have been on the offensive side of the ball. Now, Mel Tucker is a defensive guy. He's decided to keep the defensive coordinator that you had last year, but he's making him a safeties coach. So keeping him, but sort of a demotion. He's bringing in his own defensive coordinator from Kansas State, I think he was at, Scotty Hazelton. So we'll see. A lot of defensive mind talent on the coaching staff of Michigan State. Again, I was a little surprised they didn't go with an offensive-minded head coach, considering that's where their problems have been the last few years. But I don't see much reason why Michigan State's defense can't be at least as good as we've seen it be the last couple of years. I like the staff that they've put together over there. Now let's look at the players that are returning. Only 3 starters returned from last year's team. Well, 3 regular starters. Starters is getting to be a loose term almost, the way a lot of these coaches rotate players in and out in games all game long. It used to be if you were to back up, you were lucky if you got to play in the second half of a blowout, depending on what position you played. Now, with the exception of maybe offensive line, almost every position on the field is rotated in and out. Oh, offensive line and quarterback is rotated in and out at some point during the game. So only 3 real starters return, but a lot of guys return with starting experience or a lot of meaningful in-game experience. So the phrase, you look down and you see only 3 starters returning. 10 years ago, that was really, really bad. Now, it sort of depends. Linebacker Antoine Simmons, the leader of the defense, sort of your quarterback over there. He can play really any linebacker position on the field. He can play the inside. He can play sort of, cover the tight end of the slot. He can play outside linebacker. You can move him all over the field. He might be your best player on defense. Safety, Xavier Henderson. Could he be the best safety in the Big Ten? I don't know if he's the best safety in the Big Ten, but he's one of the best 3 or 4 safeties in the Big Ten, in my opinion. A leader in the secondary of your defense, probably your best player back there. But the days of Michigan State having these elite secondaries like they had 5, 6, 7 years ago when D'Antonio was winning 11 and 12 games a year, and even the year they made the college football playoff, those days are gone. You don't have the talent in the secondary now that sort of carried you into the college football playoffs 5, 6, 7 years ago. The talent level overall really on this team is nowhere near what it was 5, 6, 7 years ago. Now, Mel Tucker's a young guy. I think he's 48 years old. Only been a head coach for 1 year. So he brings a ton of energy, a ton of enthusiasm. We'll see if that translates onto the field this season, or if it's the case where Michigan State's going to have to probably wait a year or two, get some recruiting classes in there and sort of improve the overall talent level on this team if they want to compete within the Big Ten. Let's put the schedule up on the screen and see what they might do this year. All right, of course, everyone knows this is going to be one of, if not the strangest and weirdest college football seasons we've ever seen, right? And a couple of conferences, the Big Ten included, have already canceled all non-conference games. So even though I have the schedule up here and the non-conference games are listed, we all know those games aren't being played. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about them. Now, the Miami game in particular, I already did a Miami version of this video about a month ago. So I did talk about that game in that video, and I picked you to beat Miami. Now, you're not playing Miami, so that doesn't matter now, but it sort of gives you an idea of where I think Michigan State is, at least in relationship to Miami. BYU and Toledo, if I had to pick those games, I would probably pick you to win those games. BYU has the potential to beat you, but I hate BYU, and I never pick them to win a game, and I never will. I wish they would slide off the face of the earth and disappear. They didn't, but the next best thing happened, which is you're not playing them this year. I don't think anybody should ever play BYU. But in any case, if I was picking these 3 non-con games, I would actually pick you to go 3-0 in them. But let's start with week 1 Northwestern, which is a conference game, a Big Ten game, so you will be playing this one. Northwestern's another team that was a little bit disappointing last year. Head coach Pat Fitzgerald's been there forever. He played there. Now he's been the coach there for a long time. Gets the absolute most out of the talent he's got available there, right? Wins 9, 10 games every once in a while. Is he going to make a college football playoff? Is he going to consistently win 10 or 11 games a year like an Ohio State or a Penn State or even a Michigan? No. But Northwestern is good enough, and Pat Fitzgerald is a good enough of a head coach to where they can do that every few years or so. Will it be this year? I'm not so sure. I actually have you getting a win week 1 at home against Northwestern. Now, I don't think this is a gimme. It depends a lot on the product that Northwestern puts on the field this year, right? And we'll find that out in week 1. I think it helps you actually that this is the first game of the season. Mel Tucker can take a little bit longer than normal to sort of prepare for this Northwestern game. Pat Fitzgerald is a hell of a coach, though. He's going to have that same advantage. I think this will be a good game that could go either way. I sort of gave you the benefit of the doubt here and picked you to beat Northwestern at home to kick things off. Then you're looking at a road game at Iowa. That's a loss. Talent-wise, I think Iowa is probably pretty close to where you are. Now, I haven't looked up Iowa's recruiting rankings, so this would be just going off sort of my feelings about how Iowa recruits every year. I haven't actually looked it up, but my guess would be pretty similar to Michigan State. I think they're going to have a down year this year, though, compared to where they normally are. With that being said, at Iowa is a tough place to play. I'm not sure you get a win here. I think you lose on the road at Iowa. That would make you technically 1-1 since those 3 non-con games aren't being played. This schedule is probably going to get rearranged, by the way, too. So again, I can only make these videos based off the information I have today. I can't make prediction videos based off of every possible scenario that might happen with a 10th game getting added, or games getting rearranged or moved around, or the season delayed or extended out to late into December. I have to go based off of what we know for sure right now. So I got you beating Northwestern, losing on the road at Iowa. Did you come back home and play Michigan? I don't think you're ready to beat Michigan yet. I know this is an in-state rivalry game, and nothing would make Michigan State fans happier than for Michigan State to beat Big Brother Michigan year 1 of that new coaching staff. I just don't see it happening. Do I think Michigan is ready to finally take the next step and win their division and beat Ohio State and contend for a playoff spot? No, but I do think right now they're more talented than Michigan State. And because you have a new coaching staff, a new quarterback, all that kind of thing, That's going to hurt Michigan State more than it hurts most other teams. I don't see you beating Michigan this year. I think you take another loss there. Ohio State at home, loss. They might be the best team in America. They might be the most talented team in America. They might have the best quarterback in America, him or Trevor Lawrence. I just don't see any way possible you beat Ohio State. If you look at Ohio State last year, they ran through the Big Ten like it wasn't even there. It seems like they beat everybody they played by 30 or 40 points. Don't know if that'll be the case this year, but let's be honest here, Michigan State fan, you're not in a position right now to compete with Ohio State. Even though you get them at home, I think you lose those 2 games. Actually, it's 3 games in a row now, back-to-back, Iowa, Michigan, and Ohio State. Then you got to go on the road and play Indiana. This is another 50-50 game. Indiana, there's a handful of teams, Indiana's one of them, that are good enough to beat almost anybody if they play really well. Well, maybe not almost anybody in the case of Indiana, but I do think Indiana is good enough to beat like somebody you don't expect them to beat. You got to play them there after this tough 3-game stretch of Iowa, Michigan, and Ohio State. I actually gave you the benefit of the doubt here again and have you winning on the road at Indiana. Not a gimme, though. I would not be surprised if you drop this one on the road to the Hoosiers, but I've got you picking up what will be your 2nd win of the season on the road at Indiana. Then you host Minnesota. Loss. I spent a lot of time in the offseason being wrong about Minnesota. I said, look, they were great last year. Minnesota's not the kind of team that can win 10-plus games multiple years in a row. Then I sat down and did one of these videos for Minnesota, and I started looking at how much talent they have coming back on both sides of the ball and their schedule. And I said, well, maybe they can win 10-plus games 2 years in a row. Don't know if they actually will, but one win they will get is against you. I've got you losing to Minnesota. That takes you into the bye week. Come out of that, you got to go on the road and play Penn State. Loss. I'm very high on Penn State this year. I think if they can somehow get over the hump and find a way to beat Ohio State, they could be a legitimate playoff team. I've got you losing on the road at Penn State. Unfortunately, that game probably won't be close, even though you get them after a bye week. That is a benefit. Talent gap just too big. I love James Franklin. I can't see him losing that game. Come back home, play Rutgers, win. They're the worst team in the Power 5, aren't they? They're one of them. It's close. Rutgers, Kansas, Oregon State. There's a handful of teams. Rutgers is really, really bad. You know, they're undergoing some changes there too. If you lose to Rutgers, you're in worse shape than I thought. I've got you getting the win. Final game of the year on the road at Maryland. Maryland is an Indiana-type team. They are good enough to beat some people, and I actually think Maryland is better than Indiana. I like their coaching staff. They're actually recruiting. Some weird things have happened recruiting-wise with Maryland, too, where they picked up some really highly rated guys. Of course, Tua's younger brother from Alabama has transferred there. He won't play this year, play next year. But I like the direction that Maryland is headed. I think you lose your last game of the regular season on the road at Maryland. Now, because you're not playing your 3 non-con games, that leaves you with only a 9-game conference schedule, at least as of today when I'm filming this video. And you're looking at 3-6 is what I have you. Now, if you had those 3 non-con games and you won them all like I predicted, that would put you at 6-6. But you're not playing those, so 3-6, I think, is what you're looking at. And really, I gave you the benefit of the doubt on a couple of these games. I just really think this is going to be a down year for Michigan State. 3-6, no bowl. So I've got a lot of questions, too. How are they going to handle the bowl season if we even get there? And teams only played 8 or 9 games, whatever it is. They've actually already issued a statement on this. With shortened seasons, the bowl requirements is going to be a 500 record. So that's what they're going to look at. I don't see you getting there. I think you miss a bowl game this year. This is almost a throwaway season for Michigan State. Coronavirus, brand new coaching staff. Don't know who's going to play at quarterback. Conference games out the window. We may only play 3 or 4 games. If there's a year where your team is going to be really, really bad, this is a good year for it to happen because of all the stuff that's going on. So unfortunately for Michigan State fans, I don't think there's a whole lot to look forward to this year. You got to step up your recruiting, really. I think that's the primary problem with Michigan State right now is recruiting. You can't recruit 7th, 8th, 9th in the Big Ten every single year and expect to compete with teams like Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan. Just not going to happen. So you got to step the recruiting up. We'll see what Mel Tucker can do there. Like I said, I'm a Mel Tucker fan. I'm rooting for the guy unless he happens to play Georgia. As far as I'm concerned, he can win every game he coaches unless he plays Georgia. But I like Mel Tucker. I think Michigan State got him a good head coach, even though it was a little bit head-scratching to me that they made that hire. All right, that's going to do it for today's video. I appreciate you guys watching. Have a good morning.